Let's start by showing you how to access the Student Profile Report. Go to the NWEA MAP login and log in using your username and password. You will then be taken to the MAP home screen. Click on View Reports and then click on MAP Growth Reports. To access the Student Profile page, select Student Profile under Next Generation Reports. You will now be asked to select a student. First, select the term rostered, then select your school, then select you as an instructor. I happen to have access to all instructors. I am choosing Mr. Kelzer. Select your class, and then select a student. Then click on View Student Profile. You will then be taken to the Student Profile main screen. Let's walk through an overview of the Student Profile Report main screen. Across the top, you will see the Score tabs, giving you scores and other information about MAP mathematics tests, reading tests, and language usage tests, if your students took the language usage test. Below that, you will see a highlight section. The highlight section talks about strengths, weaknesses, and readiness for instruction. Below that, you will see three areas: the comparisons area, instructional areas, and growth goals. Finally, along the bottom, you will see the growth over time graph, giving you historical data on how your student has done in the past on MAP tests. It also projects out to ACT and PARCC readiness. Let's get acquainted with the Score tabs along the top of the Student Profile Report. Taking a look at the Mathematics Score tab, you will see the student's RIT score. You will also see the error margin about that score, in this case being a plus or minus 2.9. This gives a possible range of 233 to 239, which means the student could have scored within that range if they took the test soon after the original date. Speaking of original date, it tells you when that test was taken and how long it was taken. It also gives you the percentage of disengaged responses and the estimated impact of disengagement on the RIT if the student was disengaged during the test. If they were not disengaged during the test, you will see an NA next to these parts. It also lists what test was taken, in this case the Math 6 Plus, and the season in which the test was taken. If you flip to the other Score tabs, you will see that the same information is available on all of them. Next, let's look at the Highlights area underneath the Score tabs. In the upper left, you will see the strength of this student. In this case, this student is showing a strength in the area of operations and algebraic thinking, which is one of the instructional areas. Also, they give an area of focus. In this case, the area of focus is in the real and complex number systems. Again, one of the instructional areas listed below. They also tell you how ready for instruction a student is when compared to their peers. In this case, the student is ready for instruction at a level that is above most of the U.S. national peers. This suggests that she needs to be challenged. The next area of the Student Profile Report we'll take a look at is the Comparisons area. Here you will find the norms percentile that the student achieved the last time they took the test, what their projected result for the PARCC test would be in the spring, and whether or not they are on track to meet the ACT college readiness benchmarks. Let's turn our attention to the instructional areas part of the Student Profile Report. Here you will see the instructional areas for each test. If you click on each of the Score tabs, it will reveal each of those tests' instructional areas. Let's focus on the math test. Let's select one instructional area and see what information can be gained. By clicking on one instructional area, you will be taken to a screen that shows you what skills the student is ready to develop by default. However, you can also choose to show what skills will be introduced and what skills need to be reinforced by selecting the boxes in the upper right-hand corner. You'll notice that some of the statements are grayed out. This means that they are repeated from one area to the next. For example, you will see evaluates the absolute value of a number in the develop section, but you will also see it in the introduce section. The reason it is grayed out is that this skill still needs to be worked upon in the introduce section. However, it needs to be at a greater level of depth and complexity than the develop section. By default, you will just see the learning statements. However, you can also group this page by standard by clicking on the word standard in the upper left-hand corner. And there you can see that the Common Core standards will appear. You can select all grades. However, if you want to differentiate, you can select a grade level above and below. You can also choose to hide the learning statements. If you click on any of the other instructional areas, you will see the same learning statements for that particular instructional area. Let's now turn our attention to the Growth Goals section of the Student Profile Report. Click on Customize the growth target for this student by setting a growth goal to be taken to a page where you can set customized growth goals. You can set a goal by RIT score, or you can set a growth goal by percentile. The RIT growth here is your typical growth or projected growth for that student. Please be aware that these projected or typical growth scores are what's known as maintenance goals, meaning that student should hit the goal without any significant changes in instruction on your part. Please be aware of that when setting growth goals. You can set growth goals by percentiles. Be aware, however, that each percentile has multiple RIT scores associated with it. Also, you'll see something called Conditional Growth Index. If you see the Conditional Growth Index has a value of 0 or near 0, that means the growth matched the growth projection. Also notice that there is a graph over to the right. It will show you past RIT scores for this student, plus projected RIT scores for winter and spring if you are looking at this report in the fall. You can also show on this report linking studies. If you click on ACT, it shows you if the student is projected to be on track for college readiness. If you click on PARCC, it shows you that their projected score gives them a level 3 if they took it in the spring at this current level of understanding. The final section of the Student Profile Report we need to take a look at is the Growth Over Time graph. Obviously, what's in the graph is what the name of the graph is. It is the student's growth over time. It contains all past MAP testing scores for this particular test. You can also, by clicking on the little boxes over here to the right, see what their projected score is for the next few testing seasons. You can see typical performance, which is translated means here's what the norms are. You can also see the district grade level mean, how we as a district have done. You can also take a look at, are they on track for ACT readiness? And how well they would do in the spring on the PARCC test. One important point to note on this graph, please note that this student that we're looking at is a very good student, and they are above the district grade level mean and they are above the norms. However, they are not on track to be at a meet or exceed on PARCC, and they are not on track to get a 24 on the ACT. Just be aware of that. Just because a student is doing very well and is above the norms and above the district grade level mean does not mean they are necessarily going to meet or exceed on the PARCC. It does not necessarily mean they are meeting college readiness benchmarks. It all goes back to those maintenance projections we mentioned before. If they are hitting their own growth projections, it just means they are maintaining. They're not being pushed beyond what MAP is going to project they can do. So just be aware of that when looking at this data. And this concludes our overview of the MAP Student Profile Report. If you have any questions about this report, please feel free to contact Terry, your building principal, or click on the Help button while on the Student Profile page to be taken to a help page that explains everything that was just explained to you, but using way more visuals and much more helpful information, I'm sure. Okay? So again, if you have any questions, see the help screen, see Terry, or please contact your building principal.